or
All
afterwards?
right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone, and I'm joined once again by Brizer. Brizer, how are you?
Yes, I'm good betwixt. How are you? Great weather here today. At least summer has arrived here in Ireland at long last. But yeah,
Well,
enjoying it. You know.
it's pissing here, and there's a bit of a storm. So don't be surprised if this stream suddenly ends.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're going to chat about mass immigration. This is going to be an easygoing chat for a topic that is far from easygoing. And in the last number of weeks, I've watched many videos. Most of them have come from Ireland. And it's hard to fathom what's going on. I just keep seeing these shanty towns springing up in different parts of the country. I don't know what's going on. I just don't know what's going on. It's not the country I was brought up in, that's for sure.
Oh.
So we'll get into that. I'd say to people in the live chat, if you have any questions, we'll probably speak for about 45 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. And then if you have any questions for Brizer or for myself, just put them into the comments, the comment section into the live chat, and we'll address them. So Brizer, what do you make of this mass immigration? Why do you think it's suddenly been, like, it's been going on for years, as we know, but I would say in the last 6 months, in the case of Ireland, they've really turned up the heat on the Irish people. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, I'll say this has been going on since, well, when I started noticing this, it was about 2012, I'd say, 2011, 2012. Like, even in the small town that I'm in, I just noticed more and more people from third world countries, whether they're from Africa or Middle East, walking around the streets. And I thought, Now, this was when, the whole Syria war was breaking out and all that. So we heard about Syrian refugees and stuff like that. But then as the years kind of went on, there was more and more and more coming in. And you say, now it's turned into, so even before 2012, there was it was kind of a trickle, really. Then it turned into a kind of a stream, and now it's a raging river, flood. And it's unfortunate to say, I mean, I don't know how many migrants are here in this country right now. I really haven't got a clue. But everywhere I go, I see them. They're everywhere. And what's the reason for it? Well, it's the Kalergi plan, isn't it? Really, when you think about it, what else can it be? That's the only one that makes sense to me. They want Irish people gone. They want British people, French, whoever, Europeans, pretty much. They want their whole identity and their history and everything pretty much erased. And as per the Kalergi plan, turn us into a kind of a chocolate brown society with no roots, no nothing, and basically a kind of country where it's all about materialism, consumerism, and the whole kind of 2030 thing, like you'll own nothing and be happy kind of situation. And it's very heartbreaking to see this because, Ireland up to 20 years ago pretty much was an ethno state, if you want to call it that, where at least 98% of the population were white Irish. Now I don't know what it is. I'd say it's probably 70. It might be even worse. I don't know, to be quite honest. But you just go to certain parts of the country, particularly the cities, and it's unreal what you're seeing. And as I said, you've been living in Spain now for quite a few years. When you come back, every time you come back, you're shocked, I'm sure, because it's just gotten worse. And that's all I can say about it. I think that's what they want to do. They just want to completely obliterate the whole European identity. And it doesn't matter what country you're in, they want it gone. But they seem to be hitting Ireland hard for some reason. and it's whether we're just a soft touch or why they're particularly targeting us more than I think we're worse than Sweden now. I mean, Sweden was the standard bearer there for a while, but I think we've overtaken them now, and that is bad, you know.
I noticed in 2019, I was home then just for a few days, and I was walking around the city centre, and at that time, I'd say the Irish walking around made up 30% of the people. You had massive gangs of African youths, like walking around, maybe 100 of them together. And I'd never seen that before. And I noticed then visiting the towns, you know, in the Midlands, etc., that before, like the last time I'd been home, okay, you'd see the occasional third worlder, but I noticed then that it seemed to be 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 was non-European. So that was amazing. And I was home there at Christmas, but I wasn't out that much. I did notice, I was over in Galway, and I did notice it was some shopping place with a fast food restaurant. I noticed that the Irish there, there were a lot of people, a lot of families, that the Irish were about 50%. So that's in the west of Ireland, and that was a bit of a shock to the system. You expected in Dublin, you know, the outskirts of Dublin, but as you go west, you expect less of it. But that doesn't seem to be the case now.
No.
Yeah, I'll just go through a few things. I jotted a few notes down. Nothing too dramatic here. So, Brizer, could you just mute your mic? You'll see a little mic there in StreamYard.
Oh yeah.
Just click that, and I'll go through some notes, and I'll bring you back in. Cheers. All right. So, yeah. So, what I wanted to say is, for people listening, Ireland is a small country. It's remarkably small, and I think a lot of people don't realize how small it is. It punches above its weight. You know, globally, it punches above its weight, but physically, it's a very small country. And even before you had this influx of third worlders, Ireland already had a housing crisis. We've heard many times of 20, 30, 40, it could be 50,000 at this stage, Irish people who are homeless. And yet the government keeps bringing in, it seems to be every day now, they're bringing in hundreds and thousands of military-aged men, and they're putting them in camps, I would say barracks. They're putting them in barracks all over the country. And these are the videos we've seen in the last couple of months. You know, you've got Irish people out in the countryside trying to protect their way of life, but you've got these, you know, what can I call them? These gumbean property developers. You've got all these gumbeans coming in, trying to make money out of it, and building these facilities. And these facilities mean that if you have a son or a daughter, you know, they might not be able to roam about the village like they used to. If in the case of women, they might not be able to go for a jog anymore, because you've got perhaps 200 men from God knows where. Nobody seems to have any records of these people. We don't know their criminal records, milling about, loitering, and probably bored out of their brains as well, which is not a very good. It's not a very good formula at all for peace and tranquility. So yeah, Ireland, it's a small country. It's a limited landmass with limited resources, but yet the politicians seem to say that we can bring in unlimited migrants from the third world. You can call them migrants, you can also call them dependents. It's very unlikely that even 1% of these will be able to fend for themselves work-wise, etc. These are coming from impoverished parts of the world. some of them are coming from places and they've never used a knife and a fork in their lives. And I'm not joking. This is the caliber that's being brought in. So, yeah, you've got a health sector that's in shambles. You hear Dublin's sewage system isn't fit for purpose. They're saying that it's pumping out 3 times what it was built for. So the population of Dublin seems to be much higher than people are being told. And the city is slowly becoming a favela, a shanty town. I've mentioned it already. You've got all these tents now along the Grand Canal, which is a very nice part of Dublin, the Grand Canal. You go down there across Portobello, and you've got the swans, you've got families usually, you've got people going out for a jog, people strolling about, drinking coffee. And now it looks like a no-go zone. And some of these tents are even pitched over the footpath. So it looks like it's very difficult to walk. I don't advise people to walk through all those tents, especially if you're on your own, but it looks like it's very difficult if you did decide to go that way. You'd have to zigzag a lot. Plus the government is, they're kind of, I don't know how to put this, they're fencing off parts of the area there to stop people putting down tents, which means that Irish people can't access that area either. So yeah, I've heard about Clonmel. It's supposed to be a massive place in Naas being built. It's like a mini city. There's some place in Westmeath, I don't know, is it called Cool or something? And then I heard that, this is what I saw on Twitter there this morning, that in Cork last night, hundreds of migrants were being brought down to some building or some area, some camp, and the locals got word of it, and they managed to rally and to hold a vigil, and I think they stopped it. They stopped the migrants from being bussed in, possibly by the guards, by the police. And I was thinking about that. It's the weekend. It's the time when you're supposed to let your hair down and relax, and spend time with your family, spend time with your friends. And here you have people who, because of the system, they have to go out and spend an all-nighter to try and save their community from being destroyed. So I'll bring Brizer back in here, and then we might discuss a few more topics. And once again, any questions, just put them in the live chat. So Brizer, you can come back in here. Yeah, you just have to unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's true what you're saying. Before all this started, there was a bit of a homeless crisis, because there was a situation during the Celtic Tiger when a fake economic boom, basically. People were just wanted to buy a house, you know what I mean, and so house prices went up and up. It was very, very difficult for younger people to get a foot on the ladder. Now it's a lot worse. I mean, people can't get a place to rent, never mind buy a home. And now rents are absolutely exorbitant now. Even just to share a room in a house, you're looking, I don't know, probably 700-800 euros a month or something, maybe more. It depends where you are. And certainly if you were to rent an apartment or something like that, you're looking probably close to £2,000 a month. I mean, it's ridiculous. And and homelessness really wasn't really much of a problem. I mean, it did exist, but it wasn't nowhere near as bad as it is now among Irish people. Yeah, it really is trying to just tear the whole society apart, I think. And unfortunately, a lot of young people are leaving themselves. They're becoming migrants because they want to go to America or Canada or Australia or somewhere like that. And those places are not much better, by the way, than Ireland is. So, but they feel that there's no future here for them, so they get out. And we've also got a situation where people are now struggling with mortgages to pay them because interest rates have gone up and all the rest of it. and the economy is pretty much tanking, that they can't afford to pay their mortgages. So now they're being pulled through the court system. A lot of people have lost their homes because of this, and this is just freeing up more houses for more. I would call them pretty much invaders, although they're not invading because they want to invade. They're invading because they've been invited to invade, and they're just literally walking in and getting everything, everything for free. I know of a case in the town here. A friend of mine was talking to two Afghan guys who were staying in a hotel here, where there's 70 of them staying there, mainly from Afghanistan. And they said they were over here in Ireland because, they've asked, like, why, what's the situation like in Afghanistan? This is the war over? Oh yeah, the war's over, and there's no fighting anymore. He says, well, why did you come to Ireland then? And it was like, well, we were told. So obviously there's agencies over there, like NGOs over there, telling them, go to Ireland because everything is free. That's what they were told. We're here because we were told that everything is free. And it pretty much is. I mean, that's quite shocking to hear that from them. So, and again, there's people are talking about, well, is this going to be the new police force? Or they, because I hear a lot of guards are leaving as well because they're not happy in the guards anymore. So they're leaving. The army as well, they're not being treated very well. So are they going to be the new police force or the new army? I mean, that's another thing to consider too. Now, I'm not sure if that's the case, but it wouldn't surprise me. So there's a lot of things going on here. I mean, I think they definitely want to water us down, pretty much brown this country, and also pretty much to kind of take over and turn us into another third world nation. And the whole idea of globalism, really, when you think about it, I mean, back in the day, there was the likes of Peter Sutherland. He was known as the father of globalism. He was talking about, well, we'll raise the standard of living in the third world up to the standards of the first world. And you might think, okay, that's good, because at least it levels the playing field a bit. But really what he was saying was, no, we're going to bring the level of the first world down to the level of the third world. And that's what we're seeing right now. Hence, we're seeing all these ghettos now setting up, as you said, these little tent cities now sprouting up. I mean, that's only a new thing. That's only happened now because there is a shortage of places to put these people. So they're all setting up camp along the canal and all these other places. And it doesn't make any sense when you look at it. It doesn't make any economic sense. It doesn't make any kind of sense to be bringing these people in. Most of them are not doing anything. Yes, some of them are working, but most are doing nothing. And as I said, they're all men. And where are the women and children? You would think if they were refugees, they'd be bringing women and children. The women and children would be coming in first, but it's all the men. So there's obviously there is an agenda here going on. There's no other explanation for this. There's no rhyme or reason why they should be bringing all these people from so far away. I mean, how far is it to come from Afghanistan to Ireland? I mean, come on, that's a long, long, long way away. And there's lots of countries in between that they could have gone to if they needed to go to. And when you look at, back in the past when there was a war or something in some country over in the third world, wherever it was, generally the country next to it would take in the refugees, most of them, and then they'd stay there until the situation was safe to go back to their home countries. But it's not about that anymore. It's basically flooding our countries now with these people and demoralizing the indigenous in our own countries here. And I can see that a lot of demoralized people, because they're just looking around them and going like, what the hell is going on here? What is going on? And they're afraid to say something because of that. The whole racist term will be thrown at them. And but at least there's pushback now, which is good to see. But I'm wondering, is it too little, too late, or is it better late than never? I don't know where this is going to end betwixt. I really don't. And I mean, people would say, well, we should call for mass deportations and all that, but that would be the obvious solution, but it's a tricky one because a lot of these people now have been given citizenship, which means they've got rights. You know, if that started to happen, they would all go through the court system and everything. So the whole system is broken, and the only way I think it's going to get better is this is going to have to crash and burn and we start again. I think that's the only way. I can't see any other way around it. Like an easy fix to this. It's such a major issue now that it's going to have to crash and burn, I think. And maybe if the economy goes down the tubes, a lot of them will go back. I mean, I noticed that in 2008, after the banking crisis then, a lot of the East Europeans, a lot of them went back home after that. You know, not all of them, but quite a lot did. So that could do something, because I think that something like that is on the cards pretty soon in the next year or two, because the economy at the moment is just it's just going from just day to day. I mean, there is no economy really. I mean, it's just printing vast amounts of money, or we're not even printing it now anymore. They're just putting it on computer screens, lots of zeros. So our currency now is being devalued to such a point now where, you know, even just going out and buying a few things in the shop now costs an absolute fortune. So there's lots of different things happening here, and I think the whole idea is to cause absolute chaos. And this whole catchphrase of the so-called New World Order is like order out of chaos, you know. But will that work out for them, or will it all go up in flames? I don't know how this is going to pan out. So yeah, back to you on that.
Yeah, when the Eastern Europeans moved to Ireland, it was around 2005, 2006, and you'd see them in the pubs. You'd see the women collecting glasses. So when they arrived here, they were looking for work, and they were picking up any work they could get. And that makes sense. That's the impression we have of a migrant. They move to a country to try and get work. But now it's been turned on its head, because you've got thousands upon thousands in Ireland alone, and then you've got possibly millions in France, in Germany, who for years have been paid not to work, not to do anything really, just to hang around. And in some cases, they have two salaries because they get their social welfare, and then they're making money on the black market as well. And it's a real head scratcher for people. They see all these, because we had this impression growing up of, refugees, and, they were covered in flies, and they were, about 25 kilos in weight, adults that were about 25 kilos in weight, they were malnourished. But what we have now are very healthy looking Afghans, Africans. They're wearing designer clothes. I couldn't afford to buy the clothes that they have. They've got nice watches. They've got the latest iPhones. And they're moving to a country, and everything, they're being moved into hotels, for fuck's sake. Excuse my French, but, they're being moved into hotels. And they're living in hotels. They must feel like superstars. They've come from an absolute shithole of a country, and the red carpet's being laid out for them. So, it's kind of going to their heads as well. You mentioned Afghans there earlier. I know that Pakistan recently, they expelled, I don't know, was it 1 million or 2 million Afghans? And you can imagine, where are these Afghans? Where are they going to go? Do you think they're going to go back to Afghanistan? I doubt it very much. Tunisia, I've seen videos from Tunisia where they don't want to become they consider themselves whatever, Arabic or Arab country. They don't want to be swamped by sub-Saharans, so they're starting to expel anyone who's hanging around doing nothing. But we in the West, we've not been programmed to grasp the nettle. We've been programmed to be full of empathy and to stick our heads in the sand and say, sure, it'll be grand.
Yeah.
As you said, it's order out of chaos, and the chaos is inevitable. Multiculturalism does not work. It never worked anywhere. And I think a lot of people ask, why are they bringing in all these people? And then you get different answers. You're told that, Irish people, for example, they're not having kids. We need these migrants to pay our old age pensions in the future. We need these professional migrants to pay our pensions and to look after us in our old age. So, but there is another angle. Sorry, Brizer. There is another angle as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You said that a lot of Gardaí are resigning, and a lot of Gardaí have sons and daughters, and it doesn't take much to kind of just look into the future 1 or 2 years and say, well, what if they open one of these camps in my hometown, outside my child's school? And there is another thing that people are talking about, and that is, after the scamdemic, which people haven't really processed. They haven't processed that yet. That will take time. A lot of people, they kind of just, they were made fools out of for a number of years, and they're turning their shoulder on it, and they're ignoring it. But I think they have to face what happened during the scamdemic. But the idea is that, the globalists could tomorrow announce some other virus, close down the country, and this time, the police, the army will be literally black and tans. They obviously don't have much loyalty to Irish people, because they come here and immediately claim that they're Irish. They know nothing about Irish history, nothing about the culture, and yet they'll claim that they're Irish. I don't think they'd have any loyalty to the Irish people if they were handed a uniform in the morning and an AK-47 and told to go out and do their job. I really don't think they would. And this is why I say these are barracks that are being set up, because there's no other, I can't see any other logic to it. It doesn't help the economy. It actually takes away resources from the indigenous people. Doesn't help the economy at all. It helps a few gum-bean politicians and a few property developers. But apart from them, it doesn't help anyone else. So you have to ask yourself, why is it men? Why is it military-aged men? Why so many? And why are they being planted in the four corners of the island, So I'll put it back to you there, Brizer.
Yeah. And, remember before all this started, I mean, we never had issues regarding like who was going to pay pensions for, later on for people, the hotels were all run by Irish people. The restaurants were run by Irish people. The service industry, coffee shops, all that. We're all Irish people running. We're all working in them, But I think there's also this kind of thing where the people that are coming in who will work, there's scrupulous employers who will just take them on because they know they can pay them far less than the minimum wage and get away with it, and they like that. So there's a lot of people making money out of this as well, particularly these people who own these hotels. Like I did hear, again, this is hearsay information. I can't say if this is true or not. But again, this hotel in my town where there's 70 of these men, just all men, the owner made close to 2 million in profit there last year. 2 million in profit. So you can imagine how much it costs to to run a hotel that's full, to feed these people, so they get 3 meals a day, probably more. All the heating, laundry, all of that kind of stuff, right? How much that must cost, and then to still make 2 million clear in profit. that's you can understand. Well, you can understand it, but this is the thing, because now you've got a bit of greed now coming in and saying, well, people are saying, well, we can capitalize on this and make a lot of money out of it. And this is very sad, isn't it? Because this is kind of selling the country underneath, you're selling the country off basically by doing this, and selling your soul really as well, because you obviously don't care about your own people or your own country. All you care about is the shekels at the end of the day. And that is very sad to see that. And unfortunately, it's our own people who are doing it, So there's complicity on both sides. I mean, obviously the government, we know what they're about. I mean, they're as far as I'm concerned, they're traitors, the whole bloody lot of them. I've decided I'm not voting anymore. I've deregistered from the system because there's nobody out there to vote for. Like, okay, people say, well, there's nationalist parties out there who might change something, but to me, the whole political system is corrupt to the core. And even if you get a party in who might change things around a bit, they're still going to get co-opted, right? Because that's how the system works. And we've seen this, the best example, I think the best example of all was what Donald Trump did in America. Everyone thought, oh, we'll make America great again. And look what happened there. We also saw the situation with the woman there, Maloney, in Italy. She was promising all sorts of things. And I believe the migrant situation in Italy is far worse now than it was before she came in. So, and I've heard now in Holland, now they got a new government in there. They're promising all sorts of things too, but let's see where they go, where that kind of goes, So I don't think there is a political solution to any of this anymore. I think it's sadly, I think it's going to get a lot worse, and I think for all of us, I think we're just going to have to knuckle down and prepare for what's coming, get ourselves right in the head and in the body, and healthy and all the rest of it, because these are going to be very challenging times. The next few years are going to be very challenging times, and there is a war going on, and it's a psychological war on particularly white people, and we got to know how to be able to deal with it and get through it, and hopefully survive and get, and all going well, things will swing the other way. I think the pendulum is like a clock, pendulum on a clock. It is swung too far to the left with the cultural Marxists and these guys pushing all this mass immigration and all this woke nonsense as well. People have had enough of this now, and I'm beginning to see that. They've just been shoved down their throats, and they've just had enough. So I think that pendulum is going to swing back, and it'll be interesting to see how that all develops over the next couple of years. I think they've had their day. The cultural Marxists have had their day. I think it's going to turn back the other way, but I'm not sure if it's going to. It might give us a bit of respite for a year or two, maybe. But to me, I think it'll just be a changing of the guard, because those behind the scenes, the puppet, the people who control the puppets, basically, the people in control, they don't care what politics is there as long as they keep control. So we've got to be on our guard here, thinking that if we won a battle, if things start swinging our way, the way we like things to be going, that they'll cut down on all the immigration, they'll get rid of all this woke stuff. We'll go, yeah, we've won, but it doesn't work like that. Everything swings back and forth, and we've got to be very careful as to where that will go if things swing very much to the right, because that could very much swing to this kind of very evangelical Christian Zionist right, which I seriously do not want either, because that is probably worse, I would say, because these people are going to be the same thing. If you don't believe in our cause, well, we'll just burn you at the stake, and we have seen that down through history too. So there's it is an interesting it is an interesting time to be around, that's for sure. It's going to be challenging, and I think we got to, as I said, we got to remain calm through this and not get too emotionally involved in all of it. Yes, what's happening does make people angry. It makes people fearful. But I think we've got to kind of remain calm through this and not get pulled in and do something stupid, because then that's when things will come back on us, and it mightn't work out too well, you know. So I you know, it is an interesting time, as I said, to be around, to be alive right now. There's challenges all around us, and it's about how try to be clever and figure your way around through this. By also by trying to wake people up as well along the way. But the most important thing is to keep yourself and your loved ones around you kind of safe and happy, safe through this. And so somehow we can get to the other side. Because I do seriously think that within the next 15 years, at least, if not before, this whole thing is going to crash and burn, the whole system, and then everything was going to have to start again. Because I can't see any other way around it. Because this whole Agenda 2030 thing and everything, if you actually look into that, it's built on a foundation of sand. There's no logic or reason behind it. There's no sense behind it. It's flawed everywhere you look at it, and it sounds nice when it's written down. You know, I can see why a lot of people kind of buy into it, but it's all flawed. There's no science behind it. There's nothing behind it. It's just a bunch of experts, so-called experts, who got together and said, this is the way the world is going to be run for the next 100 years. I can't see that happening, because human nature, the way it is, you know, it's things ebb and flow, and situations change. You can make plans, but they don't always work out. And I'm seeing a lot of good stuff out there, because I'm seeing a lot of people pushing back against all of this. And I think that the scamdemic was probably one of the best things that's happened to us, because those of us who figured out that it was a big scam, are, they mightn't have known much about what was going on before, but since the scamdemic, they've been really looking into things. They've figured out the whole climate change nonsense, all the woke nonsense, and how the governments are all corrupt. And they're looking into all these other shadowy groups out there, like the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group and all these people. And they're figuring stuff out. So there is an awakening going on, which is great to see. It all depends where this is all going to go. And as I said, I think just remaining kind of calm through this and realizing that most of this whole thing is all a big pile of bullshit anyway. When they're just trying to hit you with all sorts of nonsense, and they want you to buy into it. They want you to plug into this like a matrix type of thing. And if you kind of just stay away from it a bit, or stay out of it a bit, see what's going on, and it's like an obstacle course. Figure your way around it. You know, that's my take on it.
I can imagine a lot of people asking, what sort of economic model is it whereby you can take 20 million people maybe and put them up in 4-star hotels indefinitely? What sort of economic model is that? And does it say, does it tell us that there's a serious recession around the corner, like an absolute crash, not a recession, a crash, and that the money that's around now is really just monopoly money, because it's all going to crash and burn? I can't understand any economic model that could do that could put up millions and millions of people who, can't read, can't write, I would say for the most part, who will struggle to find a job in the current environment, when a lot of jobs are becoming redundant as well.
Yeah.
There's something else I was going to say to you, Brizer. Yeah. the idea is, people think this is supposed to work somehow. That the politicians, they know what they're doing. They're playing the long game. I don't think it's supposed to work. Now, the thing I wanted to say was, I cringe every time I hear it, but it's quite common. You have some Irish fella or Irish woman, and they realize that, I don't know, Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael or Sinn Féin, they're all the same, really. They're all the same. Doesn't matter which name you use. They practically agree on everything, including that of replacing the Irish people in their only homeland. But you have some Irish fella, and he says, they don't know what they're doing because I won't be voting for them next time around,
Mm-hmm.
I cringe every time I hear that. It's one of the saddest things I hear, where someone thinks that by not voting for one of these traitorous parties,
Mm-hmm.
that the politicians are going to have a sleepless night on their mattress of shekels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From what I know, just from my whole research of how the political system works, is that, and again, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on, there's people behind the scenes that will corrupt you, right? And the temptations are always going to be there. And if you don't take them, then there's blackmail can be used, and then they could get you in a compromising situation, like if you're invited to a party, they could spike your drink, and then you wake up the next morning in a hotel bed with a young boy beside you, and they can use that over you. This, I think, does happen, and I think that's what Jeffrey Epstein was all about. I think he had an awful lot of information on all these politicians, so they had to kind of pull back a bit. So yeah, that's why I can't kind of go with it anymore. I used to always think I was always proud to have cast my vote and all that back in the day when it wasn't so bad. I mean, it was always was corrupt, but at least maybe there was some good things that they did, but no more. I mean, they don't care, particularly here in Ireland. They don't care about the ordinary people or the ordinary man in the street now. They don't care, and they don't care whether you are right leaning or left leaning. It doesn't matter. They see us as there to be kind of used and exploited, and basically, eventually wiped out at some point. And I often wonder why they are doing this. Surely they know what they're doing. That they are traitors. I mean, they are. There's only one word for it. And is it because they're just being paid well enough to go along with this, or are they being blackmailed behind the scenes? Who knows? But that's what boggles my mind, is why all these politicians are going along with this nonsense. The so-called powers that be behind the scenes must have something big on them to make them to do something like that, because I couldn't do that. I mean, if I got into politics, right, and then I realized what was going on, I'd be out of there. I'd be gone. I'd have nothing to do with it. And I think it's just a big corrupt mafia that's running the show all over the world, and they control everything. And if you go against that system, they will come after you and they will destroy you. And a lot of these politicians do have families and children and all the rest of it, so they will do what they're told, I think. And it's incredible how it's kind of come to that, how maybe a couple of hundred or maybe 1,000 people behind the scenes who we never really hear about are controlling those puppet strings and getting people to do their will. That's what boggles my mind, how that's allowed to happen. Because if anybody had any ounce of patriotism in them, or kind of the whole knowing the difference between right and wrong, they would do the right thing, but they don't. They don't, and we see it time and time again. And it doesn't matter if you're in government or in the opposition. It doesn't matter. They're all bought and paid for, and I think the you know the so-called powers that be have to have something on them for them to go as far as they're going, because it just doesn't make sense to me otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. I think for some of them, it's to do with greed. They want to get a job with some bank after they finish. Plus, they'll have their pension from serving or disserving the Irish people.
But then you see, if the whole economy goes to shit, like that's not going to mean anything to them, is it? You know what I'm saying?
Unless they can move to Pastures New, Dubai or somewhere.
Yeah, or go down into their underground bunkers or something.
yeah. In County Cavan, in the marshes. Here's one for you, Brizer. There's a question here from Fanula. She asks, is it possible some politicians will start throwing the towel in and go whistleblower?
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, I think, when you look at politicians, people who go into politics, they generally go into it for the right reason. They say, oh, I want to represent my constituents and look after, represent them and do what I can for them, all that kind of stuff, right? But as soon as they get in there, though, everything changes. It's like it's a club. I think there's an initiation or something goes on. I think there has to be, because as soon as they go in there, they seem to kind of change. Now, okay, people say, well, there's independents out there and they don't seem to be going along with it, whatever. But they're not going far enough. They should be screaming from the rooftops about what's going on here and demanding that the government stop what they're doing. Now, it'll be interesting to see these elections coming up, these European elections and local elections, what happens here, and to see if how that all pans out, because it'll show us one thing. If the status quo remains, it'll definitely tell us that the system is rigged, which I've been thinking for a long time. But if some of them do get in, it'll be interesting to see how far they will go to push back against what's going on, and will they stand up against all the pressure and the corruption or whatever? Okay, because I think once you're in that game, in that political system, you can be tempted by all sorts of little goodies, because you've got all the corporations in there wanting you to represent them as well. Well, we're going to bring in all these jobs and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And they're going to be putting big, fat, brown envelopes into your back pocket. Who's going to resist that? That's the thing, you see. You got to be very, you got to have balls of steel to pretty much resist that and to say, no, I'm not doing that. And then if you don't go along, well, we know where your family lives, or all sorts of little threats like that come in.
Look at the case.
We'll dig up something in your past, which will embarrass you and all the rest of it. And they can do that, Some little thing you might have,
Look at the case of that Slovakian Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know a lot about him. I just heard the other day that there was an attempted assassination on him. For the moment, it looks like he's going to pull through. But I just thought that's very strange. The leader of a country in the European Union gets gunned down. So I started looking into it a bit, and I realized that this guy was against the United Nations, the health thing taking over and making decisions on pandemics in Slovakia. He was against that.
Mm-hmm.
He was against the migration, the European Union, the UN Migration Pact. He was also against continuing the war or with Ukraine and Russia, or supplying arms to Ukraine. So he ticked all the boxes for someone who would be considered an enemy by the gangsters that we have in office at the moment. And lo and behold, he gets gunned down.
It's like something out of Wag the Dog, isn't it? The movie, The Wag the Dog. Someone goes against the system. Well, we can deal with him. And again, there's always a lone gunman, and what was 70 years old or something. To me, that looked very. I can't say whether it was staged or not, but it looked like it was all set up for that to happen. That's kind of a warning sign to any politicians out there, up and coming, who are against all this stuff, that you too could get gunned down in the middle of the street. So shut up or put up.
I always think of John F. Kennedy. Some people say that the state executed John F. Kennedy in broad daylight. They executed the president of the country. And if they can do that, they can do anything. If they can get away with killing the president of the United States of America, it's carte blanche.
Yeah.
I see Sonia's in the chat. Stay chosen betwixt and Brizer. And there's another comment here from Fanula. She says, 5 bullets were shot, he got 4. Yeah. So I don't know, the guy must have a terrible shot if
yeah, and it was like a 71-year-old man or something,
Some journalist, I think, some disgruntled journalist is what I heard.
Yeah, it smacks of false flag or something to me, The fact, as you said, this prime minister was against all this stuff that we talk about a lot, and he just happens to just get gunned down on the street, That's not a coincidence, It was one of the former presidents, was it Roosevelt or something, said that nothing in politics happens by accident, It's everything's kind of planned or whatever. And I think that's just the way it is. I mean, if you don't go along with the system, so to speak, we'll find some way. We'll try and coerce you into going along with our way, or we'll try and blackmail you. And if you don't go along with that, well, we'll just we'll get some Manchurian candidate out there and who'll gun you down on the street. So there you go. Or they can even go further and we'll say, well, we could even stage the whole thing and put it out there to people that this did actually happen. And well, who knows, I mean, because we're living in a world now where it's really hard to know what's true and what's false. It's becoming that way now. The only way I can believe anything now is if I'm right there to see it and witness it for myself, because there's just so many. I'm just seeing so many things of what's happening around the world that you have to wonder how true that is. We're just living in a world full of fear porn, and it's constant. And I think that's again another thing that's used to kind of break people down and give people, we've no hope now. We're done. And really, all we have to do is just take back our own power, our own strength, and realize what we can do ourselves. And just stand up against this nonsense and push back in our own way. And, getting more and more people kind of thinking that way, I think is probably, for me, I think is the way forward, because as I said, I think this system is going to come down at some point. It's a house of cards right now, which is ready to be blown down. And it's being in the right frame of mind and ready for this when it happens is what will get us through. And it's good to see more and more people waking up to this now, because I think the more more people we see waking up, the more people will be able to see through the nonsense, because we're just lurching from one crisis to the next. Have you noticed that? There's always one crisis to the next. It's the migrant crisis, the housing crisis, the cost of living crisis, Ukraine crisis. Now we got the whole Gaza crisis. We got just one crisis after the next, and I just notice a lot of people are very demoralized, and that's how you can uh, get control of people when they're demoralized, because they just said, "Oh, help! Will someone come in and help us?" They're always looking for some kind of a leader to come in and help us, and they'll step in gladly, and then the whole shit starts over again, and it gets worse. So the whole thing is not to get demoralized. Realize that we're dealing with a corrupt mafia who could not give a shit about any of us. So we don't give a shit about them. And that's my attitude. I really don't give a fucking toss about these people anymore. I'm done with them. And I just try and stay out of the system as much as I can. Try and get on with my life, enjoy it as I can. That's why I like betwixt what you're doing. You go up for these long hikes up in the mountains, and you just put your thoughts out there, and you're out there in nature, and it's beautiful scenery and everything, and you seem very calm and collected, and you kind of you get something from it, don't you? You feel a kind of energized by the whole thing, and suddenly going back down into this, not when you come back down off the hill of the mountain back into the sewer again, you're able to deal with it a lot better, aren't you?
You are, yeah. It's I do recommend it to everyone to try and get into hiking. If not hiking, do some other activity, some other sport. But it's fantastic because it's a tough trudge, especially if you're going to climb a high enough mountain. You might be hiking up for, it could be 4 hours, 5 hours. You never know, which is a long time, and you're sweating, and you get your second wind, you get your third wind, and then it gets steeper in some parts, and you can feel your pulse going again, and then it gets easier, and then it's harder, and you start feeling a bit lightheaded as well, because you're noticing the difference in altitude. But then you acclimatize. By the time you get to the top, you're more or less acclimatized, and it's generally very windy up on the top. I don't hang around the top very often. I take in some views, walk around just for a couple of minutes, and then it's back down. Because the idea is more the journey rather than the destination. I know that sounds very. I don't know.
But it is true.
It is true. It is true.
It is.
You realize that you get to the top, you do. Yeah, you do enjoy the views, and you say, I got up here. I had other options today. I could have done other things, easier things, but no, I decided to do this. This is my compensation for it, which really is just fleeting. It's a few minutes looking at the scenery, admiring it, but then it's back down. And then you're trying to get back down before it gets dark and things like that. But no, it's a fantastic activity. I was going to say, Brizer, I'll just go through a few final notes here, and then I'll give you the last word. And if anyone has any final question for Brizer, put it in the live chat. So talking about getting back down to the ground, to the sewer, like I will say, I was in Paris for a few hours there last summer. And from what I saw, I could say to you, Paris is gone. Paris is not a European city. I would say it's an African city. I was one of the only few white people. I was there for 3 or 4 hours, and I was one of the only. You could probably count on 1 or 2 hands the number of white people. Everyone else was African, and that's Paris. That's one of the biggest cities in Europe, a city that has a lot of culture and tradition attached to it. Germany looks like it's gone. Germany could be a caliphate. We also have this competency crisis. This is happening everywhere. We've spoken about this before. People are becoming a little bit dumber due to the environment, due to the constant conveniences and not having to think. It's, buying products with a card, never having to count coins or notes. And I'll give 2 quick anecdotes here. I was in a supermarket about 2 weeks ago, and there was a migrant. I'm guessing he was from sub-Saharan Africa. So when I was going, I was only buying a big bottle of water or something like that, and I was going towards the tills, and I was trying to decide which would be the fastest till. And to the left there was an elderly woman with this massive trolley, and then to the right was this African fella buying about 5 or 6 products. He had a big sack with him, and I just thought, sure, this would be quicker, the African guy. But it turned out it wasn't quicker, because when he had to pay, he got very confused. And then he started searching, and it took him a few minutes. He finally found his bank card. And I recognized the bank. And I couldn't afford to have a bank account there, because they charge something like 25 euros a month for using the bank account. But I get the feeling this guy wouldn't have any banking fees. I just get that feeling. And he paid with his bank card. He put his products into his sack. And then he just, I don't know what possessed him. He had the sack wide open, and he walked back in between the tills, back into the supermarket, because he decided he was going to buy more stuff. And the woman on the till, she immediately stopped. She didn't scan my items. She started shouting at him, saying to him, hey, you can't re-enter the supermarket with your sack wide open. You have to leave that, on this side. And he didn't understand. And then the women at the other tills, they started saying the same, hey. So suddenly the whole supermarket came to a standstill, because you had this migrant who had re-entered with a big sack wide open to buy more, to get more things. And he didn't understand. He didn't understand what they were on about. And I just took that as a sign of how everything can grind to a halt because of one person who doesn't understand, how things function. Another case was, here you have people who work for the council, and they clean the streets. They wear yellow uniforms, and they're all Spanish people. But there's one part of the city where they, I don't know, is it once every morning they hose down a part of the footpath over maybe over 50 meters of the footpath. They have a power hose, and usually you've got a Spanish guy there, and he's looking down, and he's hosing, he's moving whatever dead leaves along, whatever else, hosing it away off the footpath. And one morning I was walking in that direction, and I could see that there was an African fella doing it. He was in the uniform, and he was standing there with the power hose, and I noticed he was just hosing in the same place. He seemed to be in a trance, and it took me about another minute to get up near where he was, and he was still hosing in the exact same place, and he was staring into space. And I just thought, this is the beginning of the end of civilization, when simple operations can't be done. They just can't be done, because the manpower isn't there. The necessary manpower to get it done isn't there. The reason for this stream, I wasn't planning to do a stream, but I saw it on Twitter there 2 days ago. I was appalled by it. There was a video. It was a black man in a retirement home in Italy, and I'm guessing one of his mates was filming it with his camera, with his phone. But the black man was standing behind a 95-year-old Italian woman with Alzheimer's. She was in a wheelchair, and I think she was in a wheelchair. She was very feeble, but she was seated anyway, and he was standing right behind her. And he had, I don't know, was it like a straw or a pencil, or something long, and he was every so often he would tap her on the head, and the old woman couldn't understand what was going on. She was putting her hand on her head, and she was kind of, shouting a bit or muttering in Italian, and then he would rub it over her neck, then he would rub it over her ears, and this went on for about, 65 seconds, and he had this big grin on his face that he was fooling this 95-year-old Italian woman with Alzheimer's. And having a good laugh. And this was from what I read on Twitter. This was put up on TikTok. So this video was shot in order to get likes, to be popular. You know, taking the piss out of a 95-year-old Italian woman with Alzheimer's. And I saw this, and you know, there are much more violent videos than this one. This was torture, in my opinion. This is torturing an elderly woman. There are much worse videos than this when it comes to violence, when it comes to torture. But it was the manner in which this one was done. He was standing behind her, and every time she tried and turn, she couldn't turn fully around. He would move a little bit so that she couldn't see him. And in her mind, in her adult mind, her brain, as you know, is like mashed potatoes at this stage. She probably thought it was a ghost. Some sort of spirit was touching her, or some invisible insect was buzzing around her head. She had no idea. And I think the symbolism of it shouldn't be lost on us, that this is our future, unless we go in a completely different trajectory. You know, this will be our future, everyone's future. Brizer, I'll leave you with the final word, and if there are any questions that pop up before we go, I will field them and you can answer them. So I'll leave you with the final word. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of scare stories out of nursing homes and care homes. I mean, not all probably like that, but I have heard quite a few of it, similar type stories, you know. And the thing is, you see, a lot of the migrants are coming in. They obviously want to kind of give them jobs, whatever jobs are out there. But I think these people don't live up to the same standards that we would have here. They, you know, they'll take shortcuts. They mightn't show up, or what, you know. They're not. I don't think they're fully trained either, and. So yeah, the chances of something happening like that is very real, and that's not good at all. That never happened before, but I think you're seeing it in a lot of these service industries and everything around the place, that the migrants that are in there or who are working, is they don't really care too much. They just they do their job. And hygiene isn't really an issue for them, and you know, you don't know what you're getting on your plate when it's served to you. To be quite honest, you don't know what they might have done in the kitchen. You know, as I said, if you know, you bring the third world in to your country, you're going to get the third world. It's as simple as that. Now, I've been to Africa and I've been to Asia, and I enjoyed my time there, and it was fine, and I had no issues there whatsoever. But you could see the kind of chaos going on around you, and you're thinking, well, there's no way I could live here, not a chance. But it's nice to just go there and see it and experience it, and. Unfortunately, yeah, as you said, it's arriving on our shores now. In fact, it's already here, and how this is all going to end up, I just don't know. That's why I'm just kind of going a little bit further and thinking, well, the damage has been done, I think, and how do we undo that damage? I think it's not going to be easy, and a lot of people are talking about, like, let's deport them all. As I said, that would be great if it was easy to do, but it isn't. It's a very complicated thing, particularly in the West, because we do have standards. I mean, you were saying about how Pakistan got rid of 1 million Afghans. They can do it there because nobody really cares, you know. But in Europe and in the West, there are standards and there's laws and there's legalities and blah, blah, blah. and there's rights and all this type of stuff. And then, so if people don't voluntarily leave, what do you do? Do you force them at putting a gun to their head and getting them to leave? That's going to cause a lot of civil strife. Again, a lot of employers who are employing a lot of pretty much what you'd call slave labor, really. They're not going to be happy about this. And think about it, all the hotels that have all these migrants in, the hotel industry will go, the tourist industry will flop. Are people ready for that if that happens? You see, this is the thing. Because I do think we are heading for some kind of I don't want to sound doom and gloom here. I think it's something that we can get ourselves ready for, because, one door closes and another one opens. So I think this system will come down at some point. I don't think it's going to happen in the next few years, but I think in the next 10, 15 years it will. Because it cannot continue going as it is. It just can't. It's impossible. And it's about being in the right frame of mind and being strong and getting yourself healthy and understanding the bigger picture of what's happening here, and all going well. Our phoenix will rise out of the ashes instead of their phoenix, if you know what I mean. And we can start again and do it right next time. That's my take on the whole thing. I mean, people might disagree with me on that. I don't know, but I don't see any kind of political solution. I'm not seeing people really rising up too much against it. They're not very unhappy about it, but it's too entrenched now that, people feel very disempowered. And so the only way to take your power back is to kind of step away from it a bit and not let it get to you too much. Live your life as best as you can while waking up people along the way. And more people will kind of join up. And I'm kind of seeing that a lot now, which is good to see, which is great to see that at long last there is an awakening going on. And so we will see where this all goes. And I think, just as I said, for me, it's to stay strong through this, stay calm. And we'll get there in the end, because good always triumphs in the end, because what's going on right now is evil. It is evil at its worst. And it'll come to an end eventually. And hopefully we will get through this and rise again and get our countries back to where they used to be. And yeah, hopefully we can, start it all off again and get things right the next time, because we have made a lot of mistakes, and we have to look at ourselves in the mirror as well. We were complicit through a lot of this. We took our eye off the ball, and we allowed this to happen. People who voted for a lot of these parties who brought this all in. So we have to kind of consider all this type of thing, and see, like, where do we go from now? Who can we trust here? We can't trust politicians anymore. We've seen the last 4 years have shown us that you cannot trust politicians, you cannot trust doctors, trust the science, trust the science, all that, the media, all of it. You cannot trust these people anymore, because they have lied through their teeth over the last 4 years, and that should be lesson to anybody. That right. It's up to each one of us now to trust in ourselves and like-minded people around us, and even if we have disagreements along the way, it doesn't matter. This whole thing is going to come down, and we need to get through it and hopefully come out the other side unscathed. So that's my final points on that. Thank you, Betwixt.
Thanks for that, Brizer. And I recommend people go and follow Brizer on Twitter. The link for his Twitter is in the description of this video. I'd also like to thank people for coming on to the live stream, the people who have, they've given some questions there, and they've been throwing out comments. And yeah, share this video around as well. And until next time. Bye-bye.